Timeline of World War II, 1939 to 1945. This book is an introduction to World War II. It explains why and how the war started, and the important battles and dramatic events during the war. Part 1 goes from 1939 to 1941. Author Andrew Wen. Illustrator and narrator Leo Ling. How it all began. On September 1st, 1939, under the rule of dictator Adolf Hitler, Germany invaded Poland. This violated a pact that Germany had formed with France and Great Britain years earlier. As a result, just 2 days later, France and Great Britain declared war on Germany. Australia, New Zealand, and Africa and Canada soon declared war on Germany as well. Nonetheless, Poland still fell on September 17, 1939. Turmoil. The months that followed were nothing short of an international catastrophe. Shortly afterward, in May of 1940, Germany launched an offensive into France. While planning the French border defense, the French officers made a fatal mistake. They had overlooked the region known as the Ardennes Forest, which they considered to be an impenetrable natural barrier. This was not the case, and the Germans exploited it. The German Wehrmacht army entered France in droves and successfully forced the Allied troop to a seaside village called Dunkirk. Turmoil Part 2. In early June 1940, the British and French troops were trapped between the Atlantic Ocean and an advancing Wehrmacht. Miraculously, the United Kingdom managed to successfully rescue over 300,000 Allied soldiers and send them across the English Channel back to Britain by June 10th of 1940, in an effort widely known as the Dunkirk evacuation. The fall of France. By mid-June, most Allied troops had already pulled out of France, which left a severely weakened French army to fend for itself. Paris soon fell on June 14th, and on June 22nd, the remaining members of the French government signed an armistice with Nazi Germany, allowing the Nazi government to establish a puppet state controlling France, known as Vichy France. Darkest hour. After the fall of France, Britain and the French resistance were all that remained of the Allied forces. In early July of 1940, the German Air Force, Luftwaffe, conducted a series of strategic bombings of the British factories, harbors, and airfields. By August, the Luftwaffe turned their focus to residential areas and cities to demoralize the British people. This was a bad idea. The British had a chance to repair their airfields, which allowed their Royal Air Force to take the skies. By April of 1941, the Luftwaffe no longer had air superiority. The introduction of Italy and the African front. Meanwhile, seeing the success achieved by Nazi conquest, Benito Mussolini, one of Hitler's Italian allies, decided to launch his own invasions. The Italian army successfully seized Malta, which belonged to Britain, in June of 1940. Then, with the help from the Germans, Mussolini launched an invasion into Greece in October of 1940. There were incredible amounts of casualties, and a stalemate was reached soon after. Deciding to test his luck elsewhere, Mussolini ordered his troops to seize land in northern Africa. However, luck was again not on his side, and the British forces in Africa managed to easily repel Mussolini's advances. Operation Barbarossa. By April 1941, the war with Britain halted to a standstill. Against the advice of his generals, Hitler launched an invasion into the Soviet Union on June 22nd of 1941, otherwise known as Operation Barbarossa. He understood that the Soviet capital of Moscow needs to be captured before the onset of the Russian winter. The Wehrmacht army made significant advances in the first few months. The front line of the German advance had come within 30 miles of Moscow by December of 1941, but by then, the winter had already set in. The end of Part 1.